Welcome to this tutorial video for Cast Highlight Foundation Certification Section 2, Insights Consumption. Cast Highlight acts as a control tower for your application portfolio, enabling smarter portfolio governance. Just as a quick reminder, Cast Highlight has several categories of intelligence that it produces. First, software health and insights such as resiliency, agility, technical debt. Second, cloud readiness, which includes roadmaps, blockers and effort, and identifying cloud-native services. Third, software composition, which identifies open source vulnerabilities, licensing and IP compliance risks, and generation of a software bill of materials. And finally, green impact, identifying green deficiencies, providing advice on remediation, and tracking trends over time. It could analyze thousands of applications in a week. It combines both source code analysis, based on automatically understanding application source code, and enhances that with qualitative information from a built-in survey capability. All the scanning happens locally, meaning the source code never leaves the premises. The first thing that you'll notice on the home screen here is these four colored titles, which represent the four categories of software intelligence produced automatically inside of Cast Highlight. First, software health, which looks at the resiliency, agility, and complexity and technical debt of software. Second, cloud readiness, which helps identify how ready applications are to be deployed in a cloud-native state or adopt PaaS services. Third, open source safety, essentially is insights on software composition analysis, including open source risks due to security vulnerabilities, risky licenses, and obsolete components. And finally, green impact, which is measuring the sustainability and green software practices of the applications. The demonstration we're going to walk through here is using a portfolio of about 221 applications, so a medium-sized portfolio. Down below here, you see some quick portfolio insights. For example, the most business-critical applications, we list those 5. The most complex applications, top 5 there. The best cloud-ready candidates, and we see those there. And finally, the top applications with the highest open source risk. Let's start by diving into the software health insights. Software health is an aggregated score based on 3 underlying health scores. Software resiliency is a measurement of reliability or robustness of the software based on the coding practices used within the code of the application. It's an indicator of the likelihood of near-term production issues or outages. Software agility is a measurement of how easy it is to maintain or upgrade the application based on its coding practices. And software elegance is a complexity measure that's looking at how complex the code is written. Let's start by focusing on software resiliency. You'll see in the middle here what we call a bubble chart. Each one of these bubbles represents an application in the portfolio. I could turn on the names of each application with this little button here. And in this bubble chart, we have 2 axes. First, on the vertical axis, we have the business impact on a scale of 0 to 100. This is coming from one of the built-in surveys. And on the horizontal axis, we have software resiliency. Again, a measurement of reliability or robustness, also on a scale of 0 to 100. And that is calculated automatically when Cast Highlight understands the source code of the application. Currently, the size of each of these bubbles is set to essentially an indicator of the size of the application measured by the number of lines of code. But we can go ahead and change that to other indicators such as the number of FTEs supporting each application, which almost gives us an indicator of the cost to maintain each of the applications because it's measuring the size of the team that's supporting it from a software maintenance perspective. One way to use a dashboard like this is to do some portfolio level analysis of all of the applications and start to identify opportunities to optimize the application portfolio. Again, using this control tower view, we're starting first here at the portfolio level. So for example, we could see some applications in the upper left here. I'm going to zoom in this area by dragging a box, and we could see that these are applications that have higher business impact but lower software resiliency. So there's some issues here. These are important applications for the organization but are likely prone to production issues. Conversely, over here in this area, we have applications that have high resiliency, but maybe are a little bit lower on the business impact side. And specifically, I'm going to zoom in on applications that maybe have these larger bubbles, meaning that they have very large development teams. Maybe this is an opportunity to shift some of these resources to other applications that might need more resources because they have worse resiliency and they're more important to the organization. In other words, they have a higher business impact score than some of these bubbles here are lower on the business impact scale. It's a very simple example of an exercise to identify opportunities to maybe reallocate resources and focus on business critical applications that are having resiliency issues. We'll learn a little bit more about this when we get to our portfolio advisor dashboard for software maintenance. Finally, one thing we can do very quickly is we can identify applications and add them to our watch list. So by clicking on one of those bubbles, I'm now highlighting it here in the table below the bubble chart. And if I click on this little icon here to watch it, I see that I've added it into a watch list, which will follow me around Cast Highlight as I navigate, and I could save that there for quick access and deeper investigation. The next dashboard we're going to take a look at is the Portfolio Demographics dashboard. This dashboard automatically identifies the technology stack used across all of the applications in the portfolio. So in this pie chart here at the top, I could see that my portfolio is made up of some Java code, some COBOL, C#, PL, Python, JavaScript, and so on. In addition to identifying the technologies, I could see the underlying health factors for each of those technologies. So for example, I could see my Java code across 77 of my applications that it's represented by has a software resiliency score of 76.7, and then you could see the software agility and software elegance scores there. So a simple example of how this might be used is, let's for example compare my Java code, where I could see those scores there, to my VB.NET code by hovering over here. So I'll see my VB.NET code in general has much lower software resiliency than my Java code. Maybe that represents a potential training opportunity in terms of the technology skill set of my development team across the portfolio. It also helps identify if we're adhering to enterprise standards, if we can validate outsourced ADM projects, and again, identify maybe potential areas for improvement in skills and development of expertise and technologies that might have poorer resiliency, poorer elegance, or lower agility. The next dashboard we're going to look at is the application categories dashboard. This dashboard is useful for performing application portfolio rationalization, for example. It uses a combination of health measures, resiliency, agility, elegance, as well as a few survey answers. In this case, the survey answers are being used to categorize applications into different categories or types of applications. You can see those different application types along the horizontal axis here. We also represent the typology of the applications using icons. For example, whether it's a custom icon represented by a circle, whether it's integration code represented by a diamond, off-the-shelf software is in a square, and customized off-the-shelf software with that upside-down triangle. So to perform a rationalization exercise, we could identify, for example, a category of applications where we have a lot of overlap or duplicate systems. And we want to decide which are the ones that are better to potentially keep and which ones might be good candidates for retiring, for example. So again, on the vertical axis, similar to that last bubble chart we were looking at, we have the business impact score. So for example, if we were to zoom in on one of these categories, we can see that, let's take the CRM category, for example. We have a number of CRM systems, two here in particular. We have one that's green, meaning that it has higher health scores than this one in red. And it also is slightly higher on the business impact scale. Furthermore, we have some that are very high on the business impact scale. So one quick assumption I can make is maybe this application here, that's both lower on the business impact scale and lower from a health perspective, this is a good opportunity for retirement. And maybe this application that has higher health scores is a good opportunity to shift some resources or invest in terms of consolidating my various CRM systems that I have across the organization. It's just a simple example of using the application categories dashboard to perform portfolio rationalization and identify opportunities for consolidation, retirement, or optimization and cost savings. The next dashboard we're going to look at is the software maintenance dashboard. And here we're introduced to one of our portfolio advisor dashboards. We have a number of portfolio advisor dashboards for different scenarios and use cases. We'll see some of them in this demonstration. In this case, this is the portfolio advisor for software maintenance. And essentially what this is doing is it's automatically recommending applications and actions to take on them to optimize costs, improve resource allocation, improve team skills, reduce turnover, and other outcomes. This again is using a combination of both automated source code analysis data as well as contextual information captured via the built-in survey capability. The recommendations, once all that data is captured, are generated automatically by the portfolio advisor for software maintenance. So for this case, we have this Parliament chart here with all of the applications represented by one of these bubbles. They also are shown up on this bubble chart here. And we'll see some actions that are automatically being recommended by the portfolio advisor. So for example, I have 3 applications where the recommendation is to invest more resources. That's because these are business critical applications that maybe have too few resources assigned, and that's according to the Kokomo 2 model. It's an industry standard model for automatically estimating a recommended number of resources to support an application. We'll learn a little bit more about that in a moment. I have 12 applications where maybe there's too many resources assigned here, and there are opportunities to reallocate these resources elsewhere. I have 4 applications where they're probably unhealthy and have a lot of open source risks, and the development team has less experience on average. So the action here is to develop their skill set. I have 2 applications where we're seeing a high turnover rate, so that's a risk that I want to address from a development team perspective. 3 applications are recommended to get deeper software intelligence, and in this recommendation, the product's recommending to analyze these applications using Cast's other product called Cast Imaging, because these are highly complex software applications that are business critical and require a deeper level of intelligence. And then finally, I have 28 applications that are in the role models category. Basically what that means is these are applications where the actual number of resources assigned to work on them matches closely with the recommended number of resources assigned to them, and they're healthy applications, so that alignment of resources is working out quite well. So I might want to look at what these teams are doing and how they're aligning and assigning their resources. Now, the way portfolio advisors work is we also list all of the applications that have been identified and segmented into these different categories by the portfolio advisor. I could zero in on one specific category, for example, the reallocate resources category, for example, and I'll see it automatically limits the bubble chart to those resources. And down below here, I can see the list is filtered to just include those applications. Now, if I want to understand how these calculations are working, I can click on this radar icon here, and it brings up a little indicator that shows me where the application got points for each of the possible segments and the actual formula that's used to make that calculation. This portfolio is completely customizable. You can customize the segments, the formulas, the weights, the names of the segments, the number of segments, and recreate it essentially for almost any use case. You also have the option to change the segment manually if, for example, you think the automatic recommendation from Cast Highlight isn't perfect. You could change that recommendation into one of the other ones and then go ahead and save that, and there will be a little indicator here with a little blue icon indicating that this segment has been manually changed by our portfolio manager and it's not the automated recommendation from Cast Highlight. Now, one quick thing to understand where this recommended versus actual software maintenance resource calculation comes from is let's take a look at this application details dashboard, and we'll see here are all of the applications in the portfolio. The yellow bar represents the recommended maintenance effort in terms of number of FTEs. This comes from an automated calculation using an industry standard called COCOMO 2 that looks at the technology, the size of the application, and other factors to automatically calculate the recommended number of maintenance resources. The darker gray bar is the actual or recorded maintenance effort based on an answer to a question in one of the built-in surveys into Cast Highlight. So essentially what this is doing is comparing the yellow bar, recommended resources, with the dark gray bar, recorded resources, and that's one of the inputs that drives those recommendations in the portfolio advisor that we were just looking at previously, in addition to other factors such as software health, open source safety, business impact, and other indicators of that kind. The next dashboard we're going to look at is the trends dashboard. Here, portfolio managers and leaders can monitor the trends of their application portfolio over time by these various different insights. So for example, we have things like the health factors we've been looking at, cloud ready, open source, green impact, and we could zoom in on certain timelines and see how are these different factors changing, and I can simply add and remove different applications to this view and track the trends over time. Next, we'll go to the software composition dashboard, where we are looking at open source safety, essentially performing software composition analysis. Here you see our next portfolio advisor. This one's called the Portfolio Advisor for Open Source. It looks similar to the one for software maintenance, but in this case, we're recommending other actions such as immediate attention needed in these 5 applications that have very high risks across different types of issues, from security issues to legal issues. Fix vulnerabilities, evaluate legal risk, upgrade components, consider alternate components, and then again, the role model segment are the additional segments in this portfolio advisor. Take a look at our more in-depth software composition analysis demo and tutorial video to learn a lot more about the open source safety and software composition capabilities of Cast Highlight. The next dashboard we're going to look at is the Cloud Ready dashboard. That also starts with a portfolio advisor, but in this case it's for cloud. And the segments and recommendations are actually recommending the appropriate or ideal migration path for each application based on both, again, the technical characteristics of the application and some qualitative information coming from the survey. So this is going to recommend actions such as which applications are best suited for rehosting, refactoring, re-architecting, rebuilding, or potentially retiring. Take a look at the more in-depth tutorial demo video on using Cast Highlight for adopting and building a roadmap to be cloud native and adopting PaaS services to go much more in depth in this area of the product. The next area we're going to look at is the Green Impact dashboard. This is our final portfolio advisor we're showing during this demonstration, which covers recommendations on how to improve the green impact or sustainability of software. So it's identifying segments such as applications that are quick wins to improve green impact, rising stars that are important applications but are going to require a little bit more effort, role models as we've seen in the other portfolio advisors, and long-term investments are applications that are going to require a lot more effort to improve their green impact but will have a strong payoff in the long run. And then once again, take a look at the much more in-depth tutorial demonstration video on using Cast Highlight for green software insights to learn a lot more about this particular area of the product. Next, we're going to go look at the custom dashboards capability in Cast Highlight. Okay, the custom dashboards area of Cast Highlight allows users to create their own custom reports. They can create these based on identifying their own bubble charts. They can add their own tiles. They can even create tabular reports based on specific columns and rows of data, picking their metrics and indicators. it is a very robust area for customizing and creating your own dashboards. And here's a good example of creating a control tower report for application rationalization that automatically identifies different segments of applications to keep a track of. For example, troubled projects that have high business impact, low software resiliency, and other indicators as we looked at in some of those previous dashboards we were looking at. Next, we're going to look at the application results dashboard. This is a dashboard that's very useful for doing advanced filtering to narrow down to specific applications that you might want to analyze deeper. So for example, right now we're looking at all 221 applications, but maybe I want to limit this down to a subset of my applications. For example, if I'm thinking about very healthy applications that I want to potentially modernize for the cloud, I'll click on this advanced filter and I'll do a couple of quick entries here. So for example, I'm going to say I want applications that have a minimum software health score of 80 and then a minimum cloud ready score of 81. And by entering those two numbers, I've automatically limited my 221 application portfolio down to the 3 applications that meet those 2 criteria. And I can enter numbers in all of these various boxes to further refine that filter. I can go ahead and export this list of applications by clicking on this export button, and that gives me the option to export the insights on those 3 applications in CSV, XML, or PowerPoint format. And when I click on PowerPoint, it gives me options to turn on or off different amounts of data. Once I export that file, I can view it, for example, in PowerPoint, and it will have all of the various slides associated with the sections that I selected for the various applications that I filtered down to. So now I see it just has those 3 applications that I filtered that dashboard to just a moment ago. In addition to those export options that we just saw, Cast Highlight also has a REST API that allows companies to integrate just about any of the data that we're seeing in these various screens into other systems and tools very easily, whether that's an enterprise architecture system, a CMDB system. We also have out-of-the-box plugins for a lot of other enterprise systems such as Jira to automatically push some of the insights from Cast Highlight directly into Jira and create tickets and issues for development teams or other types of actions that need to be taken. And then finally, what we'll show here is we also have the option to add applications to a watch list, just like we were seeing on the bubble chart before. So by clicking on these eye icons, I can now click over here on this personal menu, and I'll see I have my personal watch list with these 3 applications on it. I could also download that same PowerPoint report that we just viewed from this menu item here, or just keep these in my watch list, and again, they will follow me around as I'm browsing different dashboards within Cast Highlight. The next dashboard we're going to visit is the technical debt dashboard. Technical debt is a measurement of the amount of effort that would be required, an estimated amount of effort, to remove all of the health issues that are in an application. Now, it's impractical to attempt to remove every single possible health issue in an application, but in some cases you might want to prioritize removing certain types of technical debt, and this is calculated based on an effort in terms of person days for each application. One way to analyze technical debt is to use a different type of portfolio advisor. In this case, it's the portfolio advisor for technical debt. And what this allows us to do is pinpoint specific areas of my application portfolio that I want to address for technical debt. Again, it's impractical to remove 100% of the technical debt of a portfolio, but maybe I want to focus on a certain aspect of my technical debt. So for example, maybe I want to focus on improving my software resiliency. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to drag the health factor area to the top of my list here on the right here, and I'm going to click into this software resiliency slice of this pie. Now I've reorganized the entire pie, and I'm focused on just the software resiliency technical debt across my portfolio. Maybe I also want to then look at improving the technical debt of a specific technology, for example. So I'm going to move technology to the second layer, and then I'm going to focus on just the high priority technical debt that are in certain technologies. I'm going to remove code insight, which is a little bit lower level of detail than I want right now. So what I see right here is if I want to focus on removing the technical debt associated with software resiliency, I'll click on that. And then I want to focus on my Java code, for example, and I want to focus on my high priority items. I could automatically here now zero in on what are the applications that I want to focus on in terms of removing the high priority Java technical debt in terms of affecting my software resiliency. So here in just a few moments, I have now identified the 5 applications where I have an opportunity to remove the resiliency related technical debt in my Java code that is the highest priority in terms of the actual elements or rules that are driving my software resiliency score lower. And here I can see an estimated amount of effort that would be required again if I wanted to remove 100% of the technical debt in that area. I could then add the code insights back in, and it will actually give me the specific code insights that I could focus on if I drill down to that level. That's a quick tutorial on how to use the Portfolio Advisor for technical debt. We have much more detailed documented tutorials on using this to pinpoint technical debt areas to address in an application portfolio. There's a number of other dashboards available in Cast Highlight that we're not going to cover in this tutorial. For example, the health factor mapping dashboard, the health distribution dashboard. We already talked about green impact and software composition, trends, application results. There's the application links dashboard. There's our continuous improvement tracker dashboard for our setting milestones and tracking improvement over time. The business impact dashboard, we talked about Cloud Ready. We went through the portfolio demographics. There's the keyword scan dashboard, which we have a more detailed documented tutorial about. We looked at the software maintenance dashboard. We looked at application categories. Custom indicators allows you to create custom metrics in the product. We looked at custom dashboards. And then the custom segmentation is where you can create your own custom portfolio advisor dashboards. As you saw, we have a few out-of-the-box pre-built custom portfolio advisors with custom segmentation, but you can create your own portfolio advisors in this dashboard here. Okay, let's drill down to one specific application now and leave the portfolio level. I'm going to simply type the name of an application that I'm familiar with called Loki. And once I do that and click on it, I have now left the portfolio level and I am now at the individual application level. So now all of the insights that I view from this point forward are going to be specific to this one application called Loki. As you can see here on the overview tab, I have a lot of the same insights that I had at the portfolio level: software health, software resiliency, software agility. But in this case, it is specific to this one application. We'll also see where it ranks for each of these indicators in the portfolio. So we can see that it's got very low health relative to the rest of the applications in the portfolio. It's number 208 out of 221. But it's actually got relatively higher Cloud Ready, it's number 76. The Survey tab shows the answers to all of the survey questions that were answered for this application. And I could view all of those by expanding each of the survey tabs. You can also add custom questions when configuring a campaign, which we'll cover in another tutorial. The Health Distribution tab gives insights on the resiliency, agility, and elegance of this application broken down by technology, and it indicates the ratio of how much of the code represents each of those different technologies. The Code Insights tab helps me understand the top improvement opportunities. So for example, if I want to improve the resiliency of this particular application, I can see the top areas of improvement here, the specific coding patterns that I want to address to improve the resiliency of this application, and I can view that by technology. So currently I'm looking at the Python code. If I want to look at the Java code, I simply select that and the screen refreshes. And on the right-hand side here, we see the specific files where each of those improvement opportunities exist. If I want to understand a little bit more about any of these improvement opportunities, I could simply click on this question mark. That launches us to the Cast Highlight knowledge base that helps me understand why this is not necessarily good practice if we're looking to improve resiliency, some recommendations, and how to improve or potentially remediate this particular pattern and code insight. Now, even though we're providing that high-level advice and guidance in the product here, it's important to understand that Cast Highlight is not designed to be a remediation tool. It's giving very high-level insights at a portfolio level, then drilling down into each application and showing you opportunities where you can start addressing things like resiliency, agility, complexity of software, and opportunities and some recommendations on how to improve that. But it is not designed to be a tool used by developers for remediation. This is really designed to be that control tower view that lets you instantly drill down and identify areas to focus on. All of these insights can be exported to Excel by clicking on this export button, and you'll see that export button in various screens throughout the product. The Trends tab allows us to see how these different indicators and insights are trending over time. So we can see if the health is changing over time, the cloud readiness, if my open source safety or my green impact is changing over time. And each of these points represents a different scan or snapshot of the application. As described earlier, we have more detailed tutorials that cover cloud ready, green impact. The benchmark tab allows us to compare this application and its various insights across a benchmark of anonymized applications made up of over 18,000 applications at this point in time. Each of the yellow dots represents applications in my current portfolio, and the light gray crosses represent applications from the anonymized benchmark. So in this case, we can compare the scores of these applications across the entire benchmark, or we could filter that by different technologies, answers to the survey question, or for example, an industry indicator. So I could, for example, go ahead and compare how my application scores compare to others in my industry. In this case, I've chosen the financial services industry. It obviously filters the benchmark down to just over 3,000 applications, but I could see what quartile my application scores fall into for each of these different insights. As we described before, there's a more detailed tutorial on the software composition areas of the product that you should take a look at. We have a detailed documented tutorial on the keyword capability of the product that allows you to identify your own specific keywords and patterns to search for in a given application. And then we have a documented tutorial that goes through the new continuous improvement tracker capability for setting and tracking milestones of applications across a portfolio. Okay, that's a pretty good overview and summary of Cast Highlight, the application control tower for performing smarter portfolio governance. It gives you automated insights combining source code analysis with qualitative information captured via a built-in survey. Essentially, we're combining fact-based technical insights with qualitative business context coming from those surveys. It enables organizations to improve portfolio governance, accelerate modernization of applications to be cloud native, manage open source risk, and make their software greener. Ultimately, making smarter decisions across all of their applications continuously and based on facts. Thank you for watching Cast Highlight Foundation Certification Section 2 Insights Consumption.